Thank you very much, Sapar. A very good morning, everyone. Also, thank you very much to Dr. Victor for the opening remarks. I think Dr. Victor has set the context really well in terms of why we meet every month for this webinar, and also in terms of why discussions around financing is crucial in terms of how we move the SSE agenda across ASEAN. Today, I am honored to be moderating a presentation on on financing. But I would like to, before I pass the floor to our speaker, I would like to, one, of course, introduce her, and two, set also the context for her presentation. So we have with us today, and we are delighted to be able to host Ku Nurasyiqin Ku Amir, who is currently a PhD researcher in security studies in the School of International Studies, Universiti Utara Malaysia. I'm not sure if there's an English name for UUM, Ashikin, but literally translated, it means Northern University of Malaysia. So it's situated in the north of West Malaysia, northern Peninsula Malaysia, in the state of Kedah. Some of you may know. Kedah, Dr. Victor is familiar with Kedah, of course, because he is a professor in
Yes,
Albukhary University.
Albukhary,
Yeah.
Alostar.
So that is where Ashikin is currently based. And just quickly, just a caveat before she starts her presentation. Ashikin does not come from the SSE space. We were having an off the record discussion previously. Yet, hopefully, she'll be convinced enough after this to maybe contribute to the space. So you'll be hearing a particular case study from her, but she'll be coming from the food security, food sovereignty perspective. But we feel like the content of her work is actually quite relevant to the stuff that we are discussing in the context of the SDG-SSE roadmap that we are all trying very hard to work on in terms of fulfilling the targets of the roadmap. She basically has been working with us for the past year, because what my center has been doing is that we have been trying to maintain a network of young researchers across Malaysia who work on grassroots issues. So we've been offering small research grants since we started the inaugural one, of course, last year. And we have continued this year as well. And Ashikin was one of the recipients of the grant. We call the grant Case Studies Small Grants Program for Young Researchers Program. So through the grant, we try to empower researchers below the age of 35 to conduct case study research, in-depth case study research on a variety of issues. So Ashikin was one of the 8 recipients. We have 7 more who worked on different topics, but Ashikin's one is perhaps the closest to the discussion that we've been having in the ASEAN SDG-SSE space. So just quickly, what Ashikin will be presenting to us is a case study of a particular paddy farming community in Kedah, in the district of Sik in Kedah. And she will be showing us how collaboration between the Kedah State Zakat Board and the Department of Agriculture has basically managed to empower a community of paddy rice farmers in a very innovative way. Innovative in the sense that the assistance has come without imposing any hard sort of technological or production method requirements. So it's basically a kind of financing that seeks to allow for the work of those agricultural communities so basically the financing allows for the agricultural communities to set the terms of how they actually produce their agriculture. And this is very important, at least in the context of Malaysia, because funding that comes through the formal mechanisms, they do have strings attached, because we do have official policies in terms of paddy agriculture and so on. So this is why I think, or we think, that this discussion may be relevant to at least the way we in the SSE space want to think about how SSE initiatives can be financed. Because, of course, a very important dimension of social and solidarity economy is the fact that it's a movement. It's a movement towards establishing an alternative economic model as well. So it's not just about profit, as we all know, but it's also about how we can move the development agenda from an alternative perspective that's maybe to some extent challenging the prevailing methods, also prevailing economic system that's in place within all our respective contexts. So the context here is Malaysia, of course, but maybe there are some lessons that can be learned throughout ASEAN as well. So we'll pass the floor to Ashikin to deliver her presentation, and then we'll invite Dr. Victor to just give his own commentary on the presentation, and then we can open the floor for a discussion. So we'll keep it casual, we'll keep it informal, so that we can have a productive discussion. Okay, so that's the introduction. I'll now pass the floor to Ashikin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khairil. Yeah, I'm going to share my slide. All right. So can you see my slide?
Yes, we can. Yep.
All right. Great. So thank you so much for, I think that's a very good introduction. My field of studies is security studies. Basically, we have two strands, very traditional security and the non-traditional security, where we look at other sources of threats aside from defense and arms. So we look at water, food, environmental security, many other issues that are also security issues. So in my PhD thesis, I have been working on food sovereignty by looking at how the food sovereignty movement in Malaysia, and during in the CSSG grant last year, I was supported to do a case study on a Padi Huma community, which is a inland or hill paddy, where people plant paddy on a hilly area. I have some photos that I would like to share later. During this research, I managed to work with this community and learn from them. And interestingly, is for me to discover how Lembaga Zakat Negeri Kedah, which is the state body, and how they support this community. So as a background, why Kedah? Kedah in Malaysia is considered as a rice bowl or a jelapang padi because it has been since the last maybe 40 years, it has been producing rice for a bigger part of rice come from Kedah and also other states. And what is significant is that the model of smallholding planting is mostly in Kedah, while in some other areas like in Sekinchan, in Selangor, or the new ones in Sarawak, it uses paddy estate, like a larger scale paddy farming, but in Kedah, they are using the small holding. So despite a gradual, I must say that there's a pressure for this community to modernize, for them to embrace the productivity sides of agriculture, and there are also smaller communities like this one who they are trying to rebuild or expand the practice of that they are considered as alternative. So again, we have a conventional paddy farming, and we also have multiple approaches of alternative paddy farming. So in SIG, we found out that there's a community that they're trying to maintain the tradition of paddy huma, and it has been going on, I think, at least 3 years. So as a problem statement, the mainstream and conventional paddy farming, it comes with multiple risks and challenges. We have there are multiple research done saying that it is not sustainable because the cost increase every season, and the soil is becoming less and less fertile every time. And there are also issues about seeds, where every season farmers have to find, like they have to purchase from licensed seed seller, and the quality of these seeds are not at par, not to the level that they want. Like, you know, they are mixing of, if they open up the sacks of seeds, they found another stuff. So these issues are widespread, not only happening in Kedah, but since the mode of centralized paddy support comes from the government. So what is happening in Kedah is also happening in Johor or Melaka. So this creates a monopoly also in the paddy farming sector, which it challenges like new entrants from coming in. Let's say if you want if you want like other people to set up a new paddy milling, it is very challenging. And then there are also other factors such as El Nino, climatic factors that are making paddy farming challenging, because it's the weather determines the planting time. You cannot plant without enough water, and so on and so forth. And then my argument is that there is a need to look beyond basic availability, which is a focus in food security, and to go towards food sovereignty, which is where the farmers, consumers, and community have autonomy over the food production systems. Okay, so these 3 research objectives are my intention when I did the case study last year. And I tried to examine the practices of food sovereignty in SIG Kedah, and then I identified structural barriers and operational challenges confronted by this community, and also the institutional roles played by state agencies such as Lembaga Zakat, the State Zakat Board, and the Department of Agriculture. So briefly, I will share the key findings. The first one is that in this community, in SIG, they have their own autonomy in setting the price of rice. So in opposition to the conventional method where the government controls the price of rice to there is a GMP, the global minimum, a minimum price, so that the consumers are protected. But the price hasn't changed since the last 13 years. When we go to an alternative approach, this community managed to set their own price. And since the padi huma is it uses a certain variety that are passed from from farmer to farmer, and they keep their own seeds. So it has a very specific quality, such as like a nice taste, or it smells nice, and distinctly characteristic that make people want to buy this rice. So that gives I found that gives an incentive for these farmers to try new methods. Like when they have the means to determine the price of rice, I think that serves as a good motivation. And then there's a niche market, and in terms of ecological integrity, the method of padi huma, actually it requires the farmers to move from site to site because they need to replenish the fertilizer from season to season. But the newer the newer attempts to rejuvenate this practice is that they will try to figure out how is best to fertilize the land. They are not moving it, but they are finding another way to fertilize the land. At first, I thought they are using 0%, like totally not using pesticide, but there are, at some point they might need to use it. But one character of padi huma is that they will use a net to cover the padi, the plant. So they are not, they are more protected in that sense. And then when I did the case study, I found that the success story or the ability of this project to be able to sustain is a relation between community and the state and Zakat support. So the community, they play a bigger role in this manner because they preserve the practice. We can like bring in people from other part of Malaysia to go to seek and learn from this community.
Sekarang? Habis. Ubah le. Nah.
Right. Okay.
If we can continue, sorry.
All right. Thank you. So here, I found that the community plays a role in preserving the practice and also seeds. And there is a collective mobilization where there are phases in planting that requires a lot of people. So they will invite the villagers, your neighbors. And I found seed to be quite, it is not very, houses are not very close together, but they will gather whenever they have this menajuk or mengasak session where they planted the seeds. This is a big event for the community. and they will gather together. And here comes the state and Zakat support, which I will explain more. So in this picture, you can see the site for padi huma planting. So it happens on the a bit sloping area. It is, but it is not very hard to climb. So people will come, like men, women, kids. They will come to do the seed planting every July and August is a good time for them because it is the starting of rainy season, and they will bring the seeds that have been collected from previous season. And of course, there are some structural challenges and constraints that we discovered over the study on whether they are able to expand the padi huma farming. And then labor, like the labor is a big issue in either conventional and alternative models. A lot of the farmers are more than 50 years old. And the shift between this labor is not happening as fast as we wanted it to. And of course, I think in the recent policy document, there is a mention on alternative approaches. But before that, padi huma or other forms of alternative farming methods are they're considered as alternative approaches that are not not calculated in the statistics. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Zakat. Zakat is as a background, it is a funding that social financing mechanism that Muslims have to pay every year. And recipients of Zakat are categorized into a few categories. For example, that people who are poor, and it collides with the farmers category because a lot of the padi farmers are also poor. That is why they are able to receive zakat. But the common practice of zakat is they are given in money form. But in this case, lembaga the Kedah State Zakat Board, they also explored like other forms of financing aside from money. They provided machineries, small machines, and in other parts of Kedah, not exactly in Sikh. I found that they also rent a land and allow farmers to use it for agriculture. And also and there are also other forms of alternative financing, such as the large-scale smart paddy field. This is not in Sikh, it is in other parts of Kedah, but they want to increase the income of paddy farmers by allowing them to work on a larger piece of land, with the intention that in the end, the paddy farmers will be able to be self-reliant and able to pay their own zakat. And another one that I found is quite interesting is they are raising a certain amount of money to build their own milling factory, because in Kedah, and also other parts of Malaysia, the number of milling factory is actually decreasing. So it becomes oligopoly, where the number of factories are not many and they determine the price that the farmers get. So by building infrastructures such as this milling factory, they are actually providing an alternative way for farmers to sell their agriculture produce. And at the same time, if we look at the SIG model, is how communities can be supported to farm in a way that allows them to innovate, to decide, okay, what is best for them, like what price, and to whom should they sell, and build their own markets. So it is still quite early, I mean, 3 years, but I found that what they are doing is something that I mean, in terms of policy making perspective, is that it should be strengthened, because I don't think like by relying on one mainstream approach will make us more resilient. And since these practices are related to our heritage in terms of traditional practices, this is also a good example on how institutions can help and to support communities to continue these practices in a way that empowers them. So yeah, I would like to welcome if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ashikin. So yeah, so there's a lot that's shared there. So this is all based on the field research that Ashikin did when she was working on her paper, and I believe this is also part of her PhD research as well. But at the moment, Ashikin is also working on a follow-up of this research. She's done the long-form stuff. Now she's working towards coming up with policy recommendations, and we are, of course, honored to be able to support that as well from our side. And I think one of the things that Ashikin you'll be looking at is how we can scale up this financing model, because it does actually, there is actually evidence here, as we see, that it empowers these small-scale agricultural communities, not only in terms of helping them in terms of socioeconomic mobility, but also in terms of preserving traditional knowledge, for example, and also allowing for them to dictate the terms of the production themselves, away from the kind of restrictions that are imposed by mainstream policy. So this also fits, at least in the Malaysian context, it fits into the broader discussion about the third sector, and also how the third sector will be financed going forward. Third sector in Malaysia, in the Malaysian understanding at the moment, would include SSE actors as well. Here it's termed as social economy. And one of the main sort of dimensions of social economy development, which is now very much part of the national development agenda, is that it will become a strategic sector in terms of driving growth in the country. But social economy and also third sector actors are also asked to explore alternative and innovative means of financing. So in the Malaysian context, Zakat is something that's very much institutionalized. Although the institutionalization happens, if we go back to Ashikin's explanations just now, The institutionalization happens within the spheres of the different states in the country, because we are a federal system. So we have the federal government, and then we have the state governments. And Zakat, because it's very much part of the Islamic institutional administrative ecosystem, falls very much under the purview of the different states. So the case study very much reflects the dynamics that happens in one particular state in the country, in Kedah. But at the same time, as mentioned by Ashikin, many of the challenges that smallholder farmers face are similar across different states as well. So it's quite important that we actually think about how we can scale up such initiatives that's being done in Kedah. But also there are other means of finance, social financing in Malaysia to support smallholder farmers. Most of whom, as you can see, are not only driven by profit, but are driven by different aspects of social solidarity, right? So it's about gotong royong, for example. It's about actually working together as a community. It's about making sure that things are being done not only out of financial necessity, but also out of ecological preservation and so on. So these are the kind of stuff that we think is important, and that's why we've invited Ashikin over to speak to us who are working within the SSE space. So before we open the floor for Q&A, I would like to now invite Dr. Victor
Yes.
to offer his thoughts about the presentation. Go ahead, Dr. Victor.
Thank you, Ashikin. That was really a very enlightening presentation with a lot of insight. I'm sure you have a lot more to talk about that experience for us to learn from. Now, as I was just making some notes, I realized I should have actually spoken before, because what I'm going to do is take a step back. Because I'm not sure everybody understands what is innovative financing. Yeah, because Zakat comes within the framework of innovative financing. This is a big push by the UN. It's a big push by governments and so on. And that's mainly because, one, national budgets are shrinking, public budgets are shrinking, and ODA is shrinking or nearly gone with USAID, for example. Yeah. So in that context, governments are looking at, and that's what the UN is supporting. And I worked with UNICEF, like I said, for 16 years, and I worked in that system. And what we've been promoting is to governments to look at other alternative ways of financing from different sources which have not been tapped. So that's what's innovative. It's a non-traditional way of mobilizing money for development. So in the ASEAN SDG-SSE Forum and the roadmap, what we're trying to do is to capture this as something we should leverage more. Yeah, and I think that's why your presentation of the experience in Kedah is extremely useful as an example of how SSEs can actually learn from that experience. Yeah, so that is what innovation financing is. It uses market-based systems like green bonds. Example of green bond is you issue a bond on climate change, climate action, or garbage disposal, and you get private sector and communities, etc., to contribute to that. Mobilizing private capital from private sector, and also looking at predictive revenue streams like taxes, levies, bonds. Yeah, an example is, as you know, the carbon emission tax on airlines, for example, is an example of that. Yeah. So the idea is not to replace public budgets and ODA, because that cannot be done, but to generate additional funding streams. Yeah. So within that framework of innovative financing, one major section or part is Zakat. Yeah. As you know, countries in the Middle East are very, very, very big on that. Malaysia is big. Indonesia, and I'll talk about Indonesia because that's where I'm working on public finance management with the government. Now, since I'm a consultant for UNICEF, we use a framework, what we call public finance for children. Yeah, you can download that from UNICEF's website, where we've developed a framework and a strategy and approach as to how we work with governments on public financing and so on. So in Indonesia, when I did, I'm still doing work with them, but in the second phase when I was there last year, I delved into innovative financing, particularly Zakat. Yeah. Now, Malaysia is very different from, and I think our Malaysian colleagues, Khairil and others know, the Zakat in Malaysia is very, very different from Zakat in Indonesia. Yeah, I would say, like Khairil said, in my views and my knowledge, Zakat in Malaysia is probably the most institutionalized. Yeah, central to state. Yeah, and a place like Kedah, which is a state run by by one of the parties, which is an Islamic party, PAS, and so on. It is 100%. Yeah, in that state. Selangor is less, Sabah is less, etc. We know that. Yeah, but definitely it's much more institutionalized in Malaysia. In Indonesia, Zakat is also again 100% in Aceh province, which is also run, within an Islamic legal framework, Sharia law. Now there, what I discovered was, and this is just one example of also a social mission or social objective, where the state government, when the Rohingya started coming in years ago by boats from Burma, Bangladesh, and so on, the largest intake was in Aceh after Malaysia. Yeah, and the state government from then has mobilized, together with support from UNICEF and so on, Zakat funding for the well-being and the welfare of refugees. That's a fantastic case study. I did not have time to go into it, but I think at some point, if we get somebody to talk about that, how they've been able to do that within the Zakat framework was, for me, very, very enlightening, and I learned a lot from that. So therefore, lesson learned. Number one, anything like Zakat or any other form of innovative financing must have an institutional base. Yeah, it cannot be just done by small communities. It needs to have an institutional base. And when the government, like Malaysia, Indonesia, and I don't know about Philippines, Mindanao, I'd like to hear about Mindanao, or southern Thailand, for example, where also you have a large percentage of Muslims, whether Zakat is actually mobilized for that purpose. It'd be good to do a study on that. But that institutional support is important, and government support is important. Then you can scale. Yeah, you can scale it to larger communities. The example we had from Kedah was a specific group of communities and families who are in paddy agriculture. Yeah, and are supported by the state, and therefore they have the larger institutional backup. The second lesson to take away is, why is innovative financing becoming important? Because we have a rising middle class in all our countries in ASEAN, a much more affluent, a much more richer middle class than we had before, which is also now, sections of that middle class is also looking at philanthropy. Yeah, you look at the number of philanthropic organizations that are registered in our countries. It's amazing to see the number of philanthropic organizations that have a social cause. They might help, feeding children in schools or some charity work here and there. But definitely that's something that we have to tap into. So that's the second thing, is to see how we could mobilize a broader middle class sector. And the third is, unlike public financing and ODA, Zakat and innovative finances is not meant for profit. It's meant for a social cause, right? And that's where it fits neatly into our SSE, social solidarity economy. That we want to mobilize funding from various sources in the community, among philanthropic organizations, among the middle class, for a social cause, whether it might be for support paddy farmers or to support cooperatives, like somebody said, and so on. So that's, I think, the role for us in promoting the social solidarity economy. So I'll just stop with that, Khairil. I hope that helped to give a certain sort of context to this case study. Thank you so much.